episode 49. Hello, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff, and I'll be your host as we listen to eyewitness encounters involving one of the most terrifying cryptids, Dogmen. Our guest tonight is Claire from England. Claire, welcome to Dogman Encounters Radio. Thanks so much for coming.
Hello, Vic.
Please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Okay, I'm 33 years of age. Well, I will be in October. I'm in the UK. I live with my 3 boys and my partner. I'm a qualified beautician. That's what I actually do, but I also studied aromatherapy and natural medicines, because that quite interests me. I wouldn't say I was a wildlife person because I'm not. I do it mainly for my partner's benefit, not my own. And that's about all there is to say, really.
You had an encounter when you were 6 years old. Please tell us about what happened.
Yes, of course. Well, I was 6 years old. Basically, my mum and dad had gone out with my stepdad. They'd gone somewhere, and my mum's friend were looking after me. She had 2 children, near my age, not quite that near. It was summer, because the day was beautiful. It was really warm, so I know it was summer, but I couldn't say what month it was, but I know it was summer. And I loved going there because she had a pool and a slide and everything that kids love, really. But I'd never slept there before. I'd never really been away from home before. This was probably the first time I'd actually slept out that wasn't at a family's house. We played all day, and it was nice, and we went to bed. She sent us to bed after a bath, something to eat, and I got to play with the makeup for a bit, which was the first time as well. Never got to do that before, so I'll never forget that day. I think it was around 9 p.m. That was bedtime. They had their own rooms, and they did have 2 spare rooms. They had quite a big house, and I was taken to a spare bedroom in that house. The bedroom itself wasn't great. It just had a little side table with a lamp, a bed. There was nothing up at the windows or anything, because it was literally just a spare room. They hadn't really done anything with it or anything like that. And I got in bed and I did fall to sleep. Next thing I sort of remember is I woke up and it was early hours in the morning. I don't remember exact time, but I think it was round about after the 3 a.m. time, I believe, I think. Not very clear on the time, but I know it was early morning. And I couldn't sleep, and I think it's because I was in a strange bed, a strange area, and so obviously I was unsettled anyway. And I thought I'd get out of bed, just randomly go look out the window. I mean, I'm a kid, kids don't usually stay in bed and just stare at the ceiling. It's not something they do. They have to move about and do things. So as a curious child, I get out of bed and go look out of the window, and I see, well, I think it's a very large doggy, because I'm only 6, so I presume it to be a very large doggy on all 4s. We've always had big dogs growing up. We've always had boxers, and we've had Alsatians, so I know what a big doggy looks like, but I thought this doggy was extremely big, and I can tell you it was on all 4s. It was in the moorland. Now, there was the ladies' garden, and then there was the moors, but in the moors there was also like a lane, and I believe, when I've looked into it, it's actually a bike track where people can walk up or take the bikes for a ride, and either side, left and right, there were woods, the woodland. This lady does still live there, so I can't give you the area, I'm afraid. She doesn't want that. She wants nothing to do with it. But yeah, so it was quite an open space, and it was a full moon, and it was shining down on the big doggy, as I thought it was. I'm watching it, and it moves, and it's like when a dog's been asleep and it wakes up and it's been cramped, it sort of stretches, and it made that sort of movement, and it was sort of sniffing the air. I'm like, wow, that is such a big doggy. Who's left their big doggy out there? Never thinking anything about it at first. I really didn't. Because at 6, I wasn't allowed to watch scary movies. My mum never allowed me to watch them until I was 16. So nothing like, I've never known anything scary or any monsters or nothing. My mum wasn't like that. She wouldn't let me read books or look at things. So to me, this was a big doggy in the middle of the field, and I wondered why someone had left a big doggy out there. And then it noticed me. And that's when everything changed. Because it started to stand on two legs, and when it did so, it was looking at me. Now, I don't know how it knew I was there. I was behind a window. There was at least 70 more feet between us, looking back, and I don't know how it knew I was there, but it did. But when it looked at me, the only way I can describe it is as though it was looking straight through me. Like it knew my soul, it knew everything, and it wouldn't. The eye contact was locked. It was very much locked, and it was the scariest, most horriblest feeling I've ever had in my life. And I didn't break eye contact with it, I don't think, because I was so scared. And being so young, I didn't know what to do. I was frozen on the spot. And it looked at me as it was standing up. It did not stand up with smoothness. That's something that I noted. It stood up like it weren't structured to stand on two legs, but yet it could. And once it had stood up on the two legs, it casually turned away, and it walked towards, it was the left side of the woods. It walked towards that tree line, and I watched it walk the whole way, and the walk was so weird. It was, I can't really explain it, but I mean, it was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life, and the way it looked at me, I'll never get over that, ever. It terrified me, and it still terrifies me to this day.
There's no way to prepare yourself for something like that.
No, especially at 6 when monsters don't exist, and I never watched a werewolf film or anything like that. I didn't still until I was 16, so it's not something I was accustomed to at all.
I can only imagine. When you think about the fact that most of the people you know haven't had a Dogman encounter, they don't even know that they exist, do you feel a bit of jealousy creeping in?
Yeah, definitely. I wish I never knew. People who want to go and see one, they don't understand. They really don't. I wish I'd never, ever seen that thing, ever. When I saw it, it was black. And the moon was shining on it, but all I could see was black, and I could not see any eye shine or anything. Honestly, it was just, everything that I saw was black. And it did remind me of my American Akita, but much, much bigger. But yeah, I don't remember any other colour than black.
In that part of England, how are things like Dogman and Bigfoot looked at?
They're frowned upon most of the time. You can't talk to anybody because no one will believe you. They believe they don't exist here. No, all that stuff's only in America. They have all the problems and we've got nothing here to worry about, and there's no way I could tell anyone. And I didn't that night. I ran into their room because I was scared, but I told them I'd had a bad dream and I never mentioned it again. And I wasn't going to because it just felt wrong to say what I'd seen. And at 6, that's strange because a child usually blurts everything. You know, they usually go to someone straight away, but this just, the way it looked at me, as if it were telling me it was wrong. It made me feel like it was wrong to tell someone, and I never did. But even if I had, Vic, I would have probably been put in an asylum or something, to be honest.
You know, it's such a shame when you see something like that, and you can't even tell people around you that might be able to help. It's almost like a prison without walls. I hate that.
It is horrible, yeah.
Have you heard of anyone else in your area of England, or England period, having a Dogman encounter?
No. I'm not saying there isn't any, but it's whether they talk about it or not. That's what faults it. They don't come forward. If they do, they don't come forward.
Like I told you in the pre-interview, I've gotten quite a few messages from people in the UK almost laughing about the fact that they don't have any Dogmen over there, or at least they thought that they don't.
We do. Yes, we do.
Yeah, from what I understand, that's one of the reasons why you were nice enough to come on and do this interview, was to help get the word out to people in the UK that they are in fact over there.
Yes, they are. They're very elusive, but they are over here. And no, they are not friendly.
Other than your husband and son, does anyone else in your family know about these encounters you've had?
No. No one. I wouldn't tell anyone.
Given the attitude over there that you mentioned, I can't say I blame you for not coming out and telling other people about that.
I never will.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you there. What kind of changes have you made in your life as a result of these encounters you've had and continue to have?
Well, because of where I live now, I'm having quite a bit of trouble. I won't go camping. I won't go out in the woods. I will not go anywhere where I think they could be or where I know that they are. Even where I think they could be, I don't go. I do keep to busy areas, even though I know for a fact that slightly busy areas, if it's not too busy, don't actually bother, and believe it or not, they will still come. So I try and stay where there's people. There's no way I would walk anywhere on my own. No, it changed everything, because I wouldn't go camping, I wouldn't go on school trips if they were going on camping. I wouldn't do anything like that, nothing. And I still won't today. I will not go camping. I can't. I'm so terrified. I can't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. And then, the nightmares that I have, I'm on medication to help me sleep, because otherwise I have quite a lot of nightmares, or I can't sleep because I'm scared to have a nightmare. So it changes everything you know about life. It changes it. It changes it so much.
Please tell us about the sighting you had with the 3 large dogs in that farmer's field.
Yes, I shall. I also would like to say that the sighting that I had when I was 6, I didn't know it was a Dogman. I didn't find out about Dogman until I came across your show, which was a few months ago. At 16, I had watched American Werewolf in London. I thought I'd seen a werewolf, but it wasn't until a few months ago I came across your show and I realised that's what I actually saw. And I just want people to know about that. I didn't know these existed until a few months ago, that's what they were. I thought they were werewolves, But our property is right on the edge. So it's a very hen house with a very large garden, and at the side of our garden are cornfields, and there's about 4 cornfields. One right outside of my house, and then a few that go further back. As it goes further back, it gets higher, so it's like up on a hill. So you can stand them in my garden, and you can see the other fields quite easily. And then there's a green field. In this green field, there were cows. And we hadn't lived in the property very long then. We've only been here a year anyway, and I think we'd only been there a couple of months. And we were in the garden, and we were just looking at the view, admiring it, as you do. And we noticed these 4 really big dogs. But this is about a mile away. So I say big dogs, I'm saying they were the same size as the cows, which is unusual for dogs to be that size. Now, we didn't have any binoculars or anything like that, so we had to use his brain, and we had to look through a scope to see what I was looking at. And my son was there with me as well, and he's 13. And we're looking through this scope, and we see these huge black dogs. They were massive. They were the size of the cows. Surely dogs don't get that big. And the only predator we have around here, as we know, is foxes. That's all we have is foxes. So we know it weren't a wolf or a bear or anything like that. But it was really strange because we were watching the behaviour, and there was 2 that were quite big, but the other one was smaller, but still big for small, which was strange. And they were plaguing the cows. They were sort of circling them. And then they'd stop. And then they'd circle again. And then they'd stop. I thought, well, the farmer's daft. The farmer's going to get he's letting them dogs in that field with them cows, and his cows are going to end up dead. So I didn't think anything about it. I thought, fine. Now, my next door neighbour's friends with the farmer, because she was a farmer herself. And I just happened to mention to her the next day, after this happened, I said, does the farmer have any dogs, and why does he let them in the field, and why does he let them plague the cows? And she said, the farmer doesn't have any dogs. he did have some dogs. He had some Jack Russells. And I said, no. I said, these were big black dogs, pointy ears, more the size of the cow, these dogs. And she said, he doesn't have any dogs. Now, I don't know if they were dogmen or not. They definitely are in that area. I know that. So possibly it could have been, and there could have been tormenting the cows, yes, because the farmer definitely does not have any dogs.
Did you watch those 3 huge dog-like creatures until they went back into the woods, or how did that end?
Then it just ended where I just thought, well, the farmer's crazy. Never really thought much else about it. I mean, I had my encounter when I was 6, and it's been many years since then. So I didn't think this would ever happen again. I thought it was something that was one-off. It wouldn't happen to me again. So I didn't. I didn't read anything into it at first. It was only when, because like I said, they were the same size as a cow, so they were pretty big. And my initial thought of wolves, and that's not possible. We haven't got wolves here. We've only got foxes. So I know they weren't wolves. So the only explanation I could have thought were dogs. And when I asked about the farmer having dogs, he doesn't have any dogs. And when he did have dogs, he only had little Jack Russells. So we're not sure what they were.
At first, when you saw those 3 huge dog-like beings, you said you were going through your thought process, trying to figure out what they could be. When you found out that farmer didn't have dogs at any time after that point while you were standing there, did you have a flashback to that encounter that you had when you were 6?
No, I had a nightmare. The day after, when I found out he didn't have any dogs, that's when the nightmares started coming back. I thought I'd got rid of them. That's what happened. And only then did I start thinking, could it be them? Could it be one of them? Could it be 3 of them? I don't know. So it was the nightmares that brought the thought back, I think, rather than the actual seeing of them. Because I was convinced, no, it's got to be dogs, it's got to be dogs. You know, you do. You sit and you try and convince yourself that it's not what you think it is. You know, it's something else.
When you see something like that you just can't explain, it's only natural that it's going to throw you for a loop. You mentioned that night that nightmares started up. At that point, did the nightmares continue from then all the way up to present day with your current problem sleeping, or when did they start?
It wasn't that actual night. I didn't get to speak to the neighbour till the next day. So it was the night after that the nightmare started, and yes, they did continue, yes.
You went on a walk deep into a nearby woods and had a strange experience. Please fill us in on what happened.
We like to walk as dogs sometimes, and because we've moved to this area, there's a canal, and it leads into a river, and there's streams, and it is beautiful. I can't deny how beautiful it is, because it is. And there's a mile walk that everybody walks the dog. There's always people there walking the dog, but we're quite fit, and we decided we wanted to do more miles. So we just carried on walking, and we crossed a little road, and we crossed into a different area where you don't actually see many people there at all. Well, we never saw anybody there when we were walking there. So where other places you see people passing you all the time, we just thought we'd carry on walking. So we did. We carried on walking. We had one dog with us at the time, which was my white boxer, and it was fine, and we could hear the birds, and it was very beautiful. And all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. All I know, it was like walking over a line that you couldn't see. It was like coming from one place to another place, and everything just dropped dead silent. And I was frightened, of course, the fear, and I was like, why is it so quiet? I don't understand. And, you know, I couldn't understand where the birds had gone. I couldn't understand why I couldn't hear no frogs. It was like stepping over an invisible line. And it was silent, and I can't get over that. I can't, because it was literally from so much noise, a split second, nothing. And it scared me. It scared me a lot. I haven't been back there since. I'm not going back there either.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you for not going back. Do you believe that your problems on your property and around your property, do you think they started as a result of that experience you had way back there in the woods, or what?
I believe, this is my honest belief, that I entered their area. Yes, I did get a picture of them in their area. No, I am not publishing it because I don't want it scrutinised, because that's all it will get. It's private for me only, and they are in that area. That is a definite, and I believe because I went into their area, they decided to pay me a visit too.
Yeah, once you get on their radar, they seem to be a lot more likely to pay you a visit, or visits, unfortunately, as you're finding out there. Not long after that experience, you woke up one morning to find out that something had raided your chicken coop in the night. What did you find?
A week and a half after this happened, they were actually my partner's chickens and my partner's ducks. I stick with dogs and he likes his pup. Basically, he did have 46 to begin with, I asked. He had 46, because he deals with them. I don't really usually deal with them. But this particular morning, he went out. Bear in mind, we heard no noise in the night, nothing at all. And he shouted at me, and I knew there was something wrong. And I came out and I was like, well, what's the matter? And you would not believe the mess. We now only have 18 chickens because the rest were destroyed. They were everywhere. The hay, the straw, the feathers, everything was absolutely everywhere. It was awful. And even if we could count the chickens that we lost, we wouldn't have been able to, because it was such a mess that it was unrecognisable if any had been eaten, gone, or if they'd just been destroyed.
Did you ever hear any strange sounds that night when all this was going on?
No. All I had was my Akita, sometimes a low growl, but he's 1 year old and he's at that age where he's very protective anyway, so like silly me, I don't always listen to him, and I probably should, but I don't, because he can get overexcited about the smallest noises. I've seen it in him when a paper bag's rattled on something and he's gone off on one, so I thought, when he does make them noises, I don't always listen to him, and I probably should. And I don't. I remember him growling at some point, and I just thought, oh, Lilo, shut up, and I just went back to sleep. The most strangest thing about that incident, though, and you might think, well, that's strange enough, is that the chicken's enclosure was on a latch. Whatever did this, and bear in mind we've only got foxes, and the foxes can't get in because it's concreted on the bottom, so if they dug through, they would hit concrete. They wouldn't be able to get in. Whatever had done it had stepped over the 4-foot fence, leaving no marks whatsoever into their enclosure, and had lifted the latch on the enclosure.
As if dogmen weren't scary enough on their own just because of the way they look and the way they handle themselves, the idea that they can manipulate latches and doorknobs the way they seemingly can, that sure puts it over the top.
Oh God, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there are people that live way out in the middle of nowhere that, as a result of hearing about that, have contacted me and told me about how that's affected them. They used to love being able to leave their doors unlocked and whatnot, but now that they know that these things can apparently manipulate latches and doorknobs like that, they lock it down big time, and I can't say I'll blame them.
My house is locked down, the windows are all closed, I'll be absolutely honest with you. Even though it does give me peace of mind doing that, if they wanted in, they would get in.
Oh, sure, as big and powerful as they are, I'm sure the windows or whatever you've got trying to keep them out wouldn't be an obstacle. It's a scary thought.
It is very scary, and that's why we lock it down, because it gives me the peace of mind.
Please tell us about the day you saw that big one at the edge of the wood line.
Oh, this one was huge compared to the rest. It's about a quarter of a mile across the cornfield. And as I say, you stand in our back garden, because it slopes up, you can see what's happening. You've just got the view of everything, really. It's quite nice. And there's an edge line, and then it goes into the woods. But in this particular edge line, there's an opening where it's clear, and you can just see grass through it. But this time, I did not see grass through that opening. This was huge. This was definitely a Dogman, no question. It was on 2 legs. It was stood in that opening with its snout, like, into the air, sort of up into the air, like it was sniffing the air, I suppose. And it had one hand on one of the bushes, sort of leaning against it, and the other one down, and I think it was down by its knee, and that's what you would call it, I'm not sure. Again, it was black. I couldn't see the eyes, it's the distance, I just know it was black, it was big, it was still on two legs, and I'm not sure if it was sniffing the air because it had caught a scent of something, or whether it was making its back towards where I am, I don't know. But I have heard noises on a night. Of course I have. I've heard scratching on the wall, and I've heard something on my roof. So I'm not sure what that is, because what would get on my roof, I don't know. This one was really big. This one was huge compared to the others, for definite. It was horrible. It was horrible and so frightening that it was that close. That's too close for comfort.
How far away was this Dogman?
It's about a quarter of a mile, where the hedging is, and then the opening. I would say definitely about a quarter of a mile. So any eyes, I couldn't really tell. I mean, I could see the outline, the pointy ears. I could see, because its arm were resting, it had it sort of resting on one side of the hedge, and its other down. I could see where its arms were, and I could see it definitely had canine legs. Definitely, they weren't human in no way. They looked like my dog does when he walks, when he's up and he's doing tricks. You know, they were the same shape, and the only reason why I could see how the snout was because he was sort of, his head was up like he was sniffing the air, so it was like tilted, and that gave me a view of the snout. But I couldn't see any intricate details because I was just too far away to see them, unfortunately. So I can't tell you anything on that, I'm afraid.
While you were standing there watching this Dogman, did it ever give you the impression that it knew you were there?
Honestly, Vic, I froze. Because my son was seeing it with me, and he's 13-year-old. So I didn't think about that at the time. I just sort of froze, got scared, and got me and my son in the house. So it may have done, but at that moment in time, I just remember freezing. I'm pretty sure it did, but I just wanted to get me and my son in the house. That was the first thing on my mind.
When you see something like that, no one could fault you for just wanting to get out of there, to remove yourself from the situation.
And especially because my son was there, it made it worse. You know, you protect your children for anything else, so...
You've had a lot of animals turn up missing, Claire. We've touched on that, but we haven't gone into all that much detail. Please elaborate on that.
Well, firstly, I will tell you about our goose and duck situation. We had 4 geese and 10 ducks, and we came out one day, and this wood panelling had been taken off by hand, so I can't say it was one of them, but the panelling had basically been ripped off, and whatever had done it had taken. We've now only got 1 goose and 7 ducks, so, you know, it had taken a few of those, whatever it was. Also, when I moved around here, I had 2 cats, and I've been in a year, and my cat's been missing, coming up to 4 weeks now, my black cat. And because she was missing, obviously I went round the street asking people, have you seen a black cat? And I've not really spoke about anything like this, and they were saying, oh, not yours as well. And I'm like, what do you mean? Not mine as well. I'm like, she's just somewhere, we'll just need to find her. And they're like, no, they're not come back. And obviously I wanted to elaborate on this, and I said, well, why? And she said, well, round here, it's known for stray cats. There used to be about 9, possibly more, and everybody on the street had come together and feed them because they used to keep the rodents down. Because we live near so many fields, it's good to have the cats to, you know, keep the rodents clear of everything else. And apparently, they've just been going missing and never coming back. And unfortunately, my cat's gone. It's nowhere to be seen. I don't know where she is. She wouldn't just leave because she just had kittens, and the kittens were only 2 weeks old, and she was a very good mum. And I had to unwear the kittens because we couldn't find her, and we still haven't found her today. But according to everybody on the street, it's not the first time, it won't be the last time that a cat disappears. So that's disturbing.
Yeah, that couldn't be easy to deal with. From what I understand, There was another cat in the area that showed up skinned.
Yeah, that's right. That was my neighbour's cat, but it survived. Because obviously I was talking to my neighbour about my cat, and she said, well, my cat, you'll never believe it actually survived when I tell you this, and she elaborated on it, and she said, basically, a cat were a tomcat, so it was always out and about, doing what it needed to do. It'd come home, it'd eat, and then it'd go out again strolling, and this one time she was in the house, and a cat comes running, and it's practically skinned. The cat is practically skinned, and it has 3/4 of its tail missing, it just has a stump. She rushes it to the vets. It has to have intensive care and everything. Now, the vets sew it back together. They sew the cat back together. They obviously they can't see of its tail because its tail's not there. And they said that it was done with one swift movement, and they put it down to people doing it. Now, if a person would have done this, I would have imagined that cat would not have stayed still long enough for him to do that, and to do it so precise. But they put it down to a person doing it. I don't believe that for a second at all. This cat was practically skinned, and they saved it. Unfortunately, it's passed away now, due to old age, but it was remarkable that they managed to save the cat and that it managed to get home when it had been practically skinned.
As far as the dogmen go that you've seen, Claire, do they all look the same as far as proportions go, or do they look different?
There's only one that were different, and I didn't see it with my naked eye. I actually caught it. I was taking random pictures, and I got home, and it was on there, and I'll be honest with you, it's not the same as the others. That it's not, its snout is not prominent. It's not as elongated. It's got a more shorter one, but it did have a pup with it, so it means they're breeding. Now, I couldn't see its legs because it was under, it was like a big, a big old oak tree or something, and it had been hollowed out and turned on its side. And it was under there. It was like sort of on all fours, because you can tell it's on it. It couldn't be stood up, otherwise it wouldn't be right. And it was under there, and it was with its pup, and that was the only one that I've seen that was completely different to the others.
Did that one have canine-style legs?
I couldn't see them, Vic. I couldn't see the legs. It being under the tree, and it was that dark under where it was actually, it was just all blended into darkness, unfortunately, and I couldn't tell.
Tell us about the pup that you saw with it.
Oh wow, the pup looked like a dog. I know that sounds absolutely crazy. But the one thing that I did note, the pup seemed to have eye shine, and it was amber, which was strange because I'd never noticed any eye shine before, at all. And I'll be honest with you, Vic, I couldn't tell if it was stood or if it was on all fours. That I could not tell you. It definitely had a snout, little pointy ears. It wasn't very big. It wasn't very big at all. I think it was probably the size of, what dog could I compare it to? A Staffy or a Pit Bull. That's about the size it was. But it didn't have such a prominent muzzle. It definitely had one, but not a big one.
Yeah, that had to be one heck of a sight to see. You don't hear about the small ones very often at all, but they've got to be out there, just like pigeons. How often have you seen a baby pigeon? Through the course of all these encounters you've had, can you recall ever hearing any sounds that they've made or smelling anything?
I don't recall any smell, for definite. I would notice. I've got a keen sense of smell, and no, I don't recall a smell. Sounds. I've not heard many, and the ones that I've had heard, I don't know if they're meant to sound like that, because it sounded something like it didn't sound like an owl, it sounded like screaming. Like someone screaming. And I've heard sounds that sound like crying from a young child or a baby, and those sounds don't sound like they should come from them. I don't know. That's the only sounds I've ever heard. And I'm not sure if it's from them or not, because I don't know what they sound like.
You were telling me about that in the pre-interview, that one day when you heard that sound that sounded like a mix between a woman's screaming and a baby's cry. Tell us more about that if you don't mind.
It was just one night, and I regularly am in the back. Well, if it's a back, it's actually supposed to be front, but I call I'm opposite. I was in the bedroom, and I've got a room where I have my art stuff because I like to draw, and I've got a computer in there and things. And I had the window open slightly, and I was aware with fairies daydreaming, painting, and I didn't realise it had gotten slightly dark outside. So I'd left the window open, and usually I would have closed it by this time. And all I heard, it was like a screaming, and I mean screaming, but it was like echoing because it was coming from right up in the woods. You could see that, and other people on the street heard it too, and they put it down to someone playing a practical joke. But when it ended, it went into like a cat crying, baby crying sort of sound, and then it'd do it again, but at the same time it'd have that scream, and then it'd have like this wail, it's like horrible. Like when cats fight, sometimes they sound like babies, and I weren't sure, maybe it's cats fighting, maybe someone is screaming, but everybody in the street said no, it'd be somebody playing a joke. And anyway, I listened, there were people still on the street, it weren't completely dark, there was still some light, not loads, but there was still some, and everybody just said, oh, it's someone playing a joke, just ignore it. And I've never heard anything since, so if it was them, then, oh my God, they sound horrible.
Yeah, I'm sure that no sleep was had that night when you heard those kind of sounds.
I do manage to get to sleep with my tablets. Sometimes I wake up due to nightmares, but other than that, I do manage to, the tablets do usually make me, I will fall to sleep with the tablets. It's just if I have a nightmare and I wake up, I can't get back to sleep.
You mentioned the dogs that you've got around. Have these dogmen ever messed with them or left them alone?
Right, I never leave my dogs outside because of that reason, Vic. I've never left my dogs outside, ever. If they're outside, one of us is outside, and on the night we bring them in. So, not that I know of, no. I'll not leave my dogs unattended at any time.
Given your situation, I'm glad that you do keep a close eye on them like that, because if you didn't, since they seem to be so thick around there, I'm sure something probably would happen to one or all of your dogs.
Yeah, that's why I don't. I just can't do that to them.
I'm glad you do that. About 3 weeks ago, some horrible noises woke you and your son up. Please tell us about that.
Well, there was only me and my son at the time, and I can't remember if he heard him first or I heard him first. I just remember we were both in his bedroom together, and I think he heard him first. He said, Mum, there's been scratching, which I didn't hear. I was asleep. But he heard scratching, like, on the walls. What would be scratching at the walls, Mum? Maybe it's a cat, Josh. Maybe, or it's a fox because it can't get to the chickens. It's decided it's going to scratch at the walls. But then, and it was really strange, it happened in 3 successions, and it was just like bam, bam, bam. But the noise echoed like it was coming from every direction. You couldn't pinpoint where that noise was coming from. It was just bam, bam, bam. And I don't know what it was to this day. And I asked people, because my original thought, maybe it's the neighbours messing with something, you think things like that. It could be a neighbour, it could be anything. But the noises that you hear on the roof, when a cat jumps on a shed roof, sometimes to get down, they'll put the claws in and just scrape. That's what it sounds like. It's like a all the way down, like something's scraping on there. And it's absolutely horrendous. And I thought, someone's messing with us. Someone's got to be messing with us. I tried to rationalise it. I always do try to rationalise it, I think. Now, the neighbours thought it was us making the noise, and it wasn't. And I do believe it was them. Not that I can prove it. We're currently in the process of getting CCTV fitted front and back, and spotlights, because we have no lights or anything, so there's nothing stopping them from coming at the moment. And these bangs and these scratches and this scraping, it happens. I think we've had it a few times while we've been here, and I've just sort of tried to pass it off as something, or one at neighbours, but I'm absolutely terrified.
Oh, I don't think anyone could blame you. When you hear those scratching noises on the metal roof, does it sound like they're using their claws to try and gain purchase to keep from falling off, or what do you think?
My roof's tiled. It's tiled. It's very slippy tiles. So possibly, Vic, I don't know. I don't intend on sticking my head out the window to look either at what they're doing. No, thank you. I'll just leave them be. I know that we've had a few tiles come off the roof, and we found them in the morning on the grass. Unsure of why they're there. Then we've had to have them replaced. We've had to do that a couple of times, actually. So whatever they are doing, they seemingly knock tiles off and they end up on the garden and we end up having to replace them.
In the pre-interview and before that, Claire, we've spent a fair amount of time talking about these unique nightmares that you've been having and continue to have. In most dreams, when you fall off a building or someplace high, right before you hit the ground, you normally wake up. With you, your dreams are different. They're unique. Tell us about these dreams and why they're so bad.
Okay. Basically, in these dreams, there's usually 2 or more dogmen. They are the canine type. They are black, and they are chasing me, and it's usually through a wooded area or a dirt path. It never usually changes. It's very much the same, repeating itself. Now, the problem with this dream is I don't get away. I never get away. They get me, and they rip me to shreds every time.
You know, Claire, there's another eyewitness that's had the exact same type of nightmares that you just mentioned. Every night, almost, he has the same horrible nightmare where he's running from a dog man or from dog men, plural. They catch him and they tear into him, rip him apart. It's just horrible. I thought it was just an isolated circumstance. If it's of any comfort, like I told you in those conversations, you're not the only one that has these very vivid but strange nightmares.
It is comforting, as horrible as that sounds. It is.
It sure makes you wonder what in the world's behind all that. That is so strange. From what you said, though, after our conversations, you are doing better as far as those nightmares go.
Yes. Now I've opened up and spoke to someone I know is not going to laugh at me, that I know understands me. I am starting to feel better, yes.
Well, that's such good news. When you started going down the list of all these things that have happened to you and continue to happen to you, you just seem to be under siege by these things, and I feel so sorry that you have to go through this, but I'm so glad at the same time from talking to you that you said recently it's gotten a lot better.
Since we had our conversation and you made me feel much, much better. Much better. It has gotten better, it definitely has.
Is there any particular reason why you think you've been having all of these encounters and problems with dog men?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it makes you feel singled out. It makes you feel, what have I done? I must have done something to deserve this. Why me? I ask myself these questions every day, and I have no answers. So.
Yeah, it is a really hard situation to figure. Sometimes there is no good answer. It just happens. And in your situation, I think that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Now understand, Claire, I'm not judging you. I'm just asking here, why haven't you thrown in the towel and moved into the middle of town?
Because my partner, he needs to be near country. I can't elaborate on it, unfortunately. I'm not allowed. But he likes to hunt, things like that. And I love him, and I'll follow him wherever he goes. And to be honest, before I moved to this address, I didn't really have all of the problems that I've got now. And I've only been here a year. And I've got a house that I want, with land that I want. I really don't want to have to move. I've only been here just over 12 months. I don't want to have to go. I don't want to be scared out of my home. This is my home. It's what I wanted. It's why I'm here. And that's something I feel very strongly about. It is not moving.
Well, I hope it never gets to the point where you do have to move. It sounds like you really like that property and living there. Do you think that maybe your problems with these things are over, or what?
I wish I knew. Probably not. Probably not. But I wish there were. But I don't think so. No, I don't think they've done yet.
Well, even if it is a situation where your encounters with these things aren't over, I think after our conversations, you should be in a better position to deal with it.
Definitely, I've not had any strange noises for a while around the house and things, so yeah, I am more confident.
You blew me away. I never will forget the first time that we spoke about your situation there. I couldn't believe when you told me the next day that you had been out in the garden working, everything was going well, you had a good night's sleep that night.
I did? I did, yeah.
Blew me away.
It felt like a big weight had been lifted, and I just felt relief. It was just relief after concealing this for so long, and then just having that relief that someone knows you're telling the truth. You don't have to, hide it and sugarcoat it, because they know. So you don't have to hide anything.
I couldn't believe it. That was such good news to hear. Well, Claire, it's time to wrap the show up. Do you have any closing comments to share?
I do. If anyone has had an encounter and hasn't spoken to anyone, I advise you to speak to Vic, because he's awesome at what he does. He's perfect in every way. He's helped me so much. And without this show, I really think I'd be in a worse state now. And I just want people to know that.
I can't tell you how glad I am that you found out about me in whatever capacity I was able to help. That's really good news.
Yeah, it is for me too.
Well, thanks again so much for coming on the show. And by the way, I've got to tell you, I love that accent you've got. That's an amazing accent.
Yeah, I've always liked the American one, so we could switch.
That's the funny part. We don't think we have accents.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me they've commented on my accent, and I'm thinking, what accent? I don't think I've got one, but I guess it's all a matter of opinion on that. But
it is.
Like I said, Claire, thanks again so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And like I've told you before, I'm always here. If you ever need any help, please do let me know.
Oh, yes, I definitely will.
Great. Well, have a great night.
You too, Vic.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. If you've had a Dogman encounter and you'd like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, you can reach me at contact@dogmanencounters.com. I'd love to hear from you.